everyone, this is Mindy Egan and welcome back to another Lawn Fawn video. Today we're going to be making a really high five happy birthday Flippy Flappy interactive card. I am using images from the Really High Five stamp set and I stamped them on 80-pound white cardstock in the Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink. Now I did show all of the coloring in the video, but I sped it up quite a bit so we can focus on the interactive portion of the card. And as always, I will have the colors that I use listed at the very top of the screen. All of my images are colored in Copic markers, starting with this cute little fox where I used E18, E09, E08, and E97. So it's a really nice reddish brown. For the belly and the face, I did E55, E53 and E50, and I used that same light colored combination for the bear's belly as well. I colored the bear with E37, E35, E33, and E31. And then I did another brown combination for my little mouse. I did E44, E43, E42, and E41. I also colored in the little bunny with some warm grays. I didn't end up using this one, but I still wanted to show the coloring because it's just so cute. I did W4, W2, and W0, and I added R20 in the ears of all the critters. I stamped out quite a few of the balloons because I thought it would be really cute for each of the critters to kind of be carrying a bunch of balloons. And once again, all of those colors will be listed at the top since I am speeding through it. But what I did is I took my darkest color and just placed a line of that color on one side of the balloon. And then I blended it out with the remaining colors. Now, some of the balloons have a 4-color combination. The smaller balloons have a 3-color combination. The lightest color out of each one is going to be kind of just my little highlight area that is kind of like an oval or a crescent shape, just to show that highlight. So once I have my rainbow assortment of balloons all colored in, I am going to take the coordinating dies, line them up over all of the images and hold them in place with Post-it tape, and then run this through my die cut machine. For my background, I'm going to be using the stencil Lots of Hearts, starting with the first layer of the stencil. It doesn't matter which one you start with, I just picked one of them, lined that up over a piece of 80-pound white cardstock that is cut to 4¼ by 5½, and I'm holding that stencil down with my magnets on my Make Art station. Then I'm taking a blending brush and I am applying Guava ink to about the first top third of the card. Next, I'm going to bring in Fake Tan, and these are all inks from Lawn Fawn. I'm going in about the center of the card, and then I'll finish up the bottom with Sunflower ink. And I think the best blends are when these colors overlap each other. Then after I have Sunflower down, I'm going to remove the magnets, take off that stencil, and bring in the second layer of this stencil. And I am just lining this up wherever there's the open space for it to fit in. And since I already had my sunflower ink out, I'm going to start at the very bottom and work my way up, starting with that sunflower, blending up. And then I have the fake tan in the middle and topping it off with the guava ink. Now, after I remove this layer of the stencil, which I will rinse off both of these stencils in my sink just with some warm water, I thought the background was just a little bit too bright white. So what I'm going to do is just take my blending brushes again and go over all of those areas, starting at the top with that guava ink, just really lightly going on to the cardstock. That way it's just adding that little bit of hint of color behind the hearts. And then I brought in the fake tan. I'm not sure, I don't think I really used the sunflower because the fake tan just really looked pretty over that yellow towards the bottom of the card. To add a little bit more interest and sparkle to my background, I just added a couple drops into my starry watercolors in the gold, and I'm picking that up with my paintbrush and just flicking that all over the background. I'm going to ground my images a little bit by using this grassy border that I die cut from Cilantro cardstock, and I'm adding a little bit of noble fir to the very top of the grass. Just blending that on in kind of a circular motion, just real lightly coming down. I didn't want to cover the whole thing. I'm going to end up trimming my heart panel down, and to do that, I am going to be using the small stitched rectangles die. This one happens to measure 5 by 3 3/4, which is exactly what we're going to need to cover our interactive portion of the card that I'll show you in just a moment. So here's the card panel that I'll be using to create my interactive portion of the card. This measures 5 by 3 3/4. I am taking this first die that has the arrow in it. I'm lining that bottom portion of the die with the bottom of my card so the arrow is pointing down. Once I have that lined up about center where I want it to be, I'm going to hold that down with the Post-it tape and run that through the die cut machine. Now I also have this other die here that has the slit in it, and I die cut that from 110-pound cardstock, so it's going to be nice and sturdy. Now on this original piece of cardstock, I am just taking all of those scored lines that the die created, and I'm folding each one of those over, and then I'm reinforcing it with my bone folder. So I'll continue that for the front, then I'm going to flip it over and repeat those same steps. I want to make sure that these are really nice and scored so that it moves really nice once I get my interactive card together. So now I have the back of my card facing up and also the back of my tab facing up. And I am just going to thread one of those folded tabs through the slot. And once I have that in there, I just want one sticking through. I'm going to take some of the double-sided tape and I'm going to line the back of that first tab with the double-sided tape. You want to make sure you're using something super strong like the double-sided tape so that our mechanism holds up. Once I have that on there and I'm just going to push down to make sure it's really nice and burnished into that tab, I'm going to remove the backing of that double-sided tape and then I'm going to fold this tab over. So I just make sure that this is all kind of butted up and it's straight, and then I can just carefully fold that down and push down. Next, I'm going to take some foam tape and I am going to fold it in half. So we're doubling this up. Then I'm going to trim it in half into a skinny strip. Now we want to make sure that this is a doubled up foam tape so that it's giving our mechanism enough room to move. So I'll remove the backing on one side and line that up on the very edge of my base, trim off any excess, and then I'll repeat that on the other side. You want to make sure there is nothing right next to that mechanism so that it gives it enough room to move. So then after I have my double-sided tape on there, I can flip this over and I'm going to bring in my heart panel that I created. And you can see that by die cutting my heart panel from the small stitched rectangles, it fits perfectly on the front of this card. So I'm taking my tape runner and I'm adding tape all around the edges of that card base, making sure that nothing is over those tabbed areas. Otherwise, our mechanism won't work. And then I can add my decorated panel on the front. Now I'm also going to go ahead and take my grass that I created and just put some tape runner behind that and add that to the front of my card. Now I'm creating this so that my Flippy Flappy is at the bottom. And then to help me line things up really straight, I have a card base that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I just put a little rolled up tape in the inside to hold that shut. And I like to use my MISTI to kind of put that in the corner and it stays in place for me. And then I can remove the backing of that foam tape and I'm going to line this up over my card base. And I just like using my MISTI to do this sometimes so that my card base isn't sliding all over the place or I don't bump it, and I can get even margin around that entire card panel. Now that I have that done, I am going to just pull on the tab and make sure that this is all working really smooth, and also, as Kelly likes to call it, training my mechanism to get it to work properly. So the more you pull it, the more you play with it, the better it is going to move. So before I attach my critter to the Flippy Flappy portion of the card, I want to make sure that I have everything laid out exactly where I want it to go. So I have everything kind of just placed there. And then I'm coming in and I'm adding tape runner behind the balloon and the critters. The strings for the balloons I am adding with some liquid glue. And then actually after I thought about it, I did come back in and I'm popping up the balloons and the critters with some foam squares. So I just thought it was really cute to have these two critters on the side, and then I'm going to have the smallest one in the middle just with that single balloon, and the mouse is going to be what pops into the scene. And this card I really do have an intention for. It is going to be a birthday card for my husband, whose birthday is today, January 13th, and he loves interactive cards that I create with lawnfawn. Now to get this little mouse to pop out, I have those two dies there from the Flippy Flappy die, which is the long skinny rectangle and the smaller one. That longer rectangle I'm going to die cut with a piece of acetate, and the smaller one I'm die cutting from white cardstock. So I pulled the tab all the way out, and on that first tab there that pops out, or that bottom one there, I placed some double-sided adhesive. I'm just pushing down really well, make sure that is really stuck down to the cardstock. Then I'm going to remove the backing of that. And now this is where the acetate comes in. This is where my little mouse is going to be attached to. So I lined the bottom of my acetate up over that exposed double-sided tape. And then once I have that about where I want my little mouse to kind of pop out of, I'm going to put some more double-sided tape right over that to make sure it is secured down. I'll remove the backing of that, and that's where this smaller piece of white cardstock comes from that we cut, and that's going to cover up our little mechanism there. So it's just making our card look pretty once that tab is pulled. Now, once I have that all in place, I can add my little mouse. And I'm actually going to be attaching the mouse with double-sided tape as well. I wanted to make sure that my little mouse stayed really secured on that acetate. So I'm going to line up my mouse, put a little bit of double-sided tape behind it, and attach it to that acetate. And then there is a little bit of acetate that's kind of overhanging a little bit. And once I attach my mouse, I'm just going to trim that off. Now, once that all is in place, I can start working the Flippy Flappy a little bit. I want to make sure that my mouse is popping out really good, just kind of getting it warmed up and making sure everything is running smoothly. Now, I also wanted to finish this off, so I created a little tab there cut from Cilantro cardstock so it matches my green. This is also in the Flippy Flappy die, and I just attached it with some liquid glue. Now, one last thing I need to do is add my sentiment. So for this, I took a piece of black cardstock and I trimmed it out with the simple wavy banners die. And then I have just an acrylic block and a sentiment from Wavy Sayings that says happy birthday. I am prepping that little banner with an anti-static powder tool, and I'm inking up this happy birthday saying with lawnfawn embossing ink. I'm going to line that up over the banner and stamp that down. I'll use my tweezers to kind of pick this up and hold it for me so that I can sprinkle on the Lawn Fawn white embossing powder and tap off any of the excess. And once my heat gun is warmed up, I can melt the embossing powder. And so it really helps to hold with the tweezers because that's keeping my fingers out of the way. I plan on attaching this right over that middle balloon that is on the front of the card, and I love the pop of black to make it really stand out. I added foam squares to the very ends of the banner and a little bit of tape runner in the center so that the center will attach to a balloon and it's also popped up to match the height of the balloons. So that finishes off the card so that when I pull my tab, I have my mouse that just pops out into the scene with that middle balloon. Now, it did take some warming up once everything was kind of all put together, but afterwards it does run really smooth and it's super cute. I know my husband's going to like this because, like I said, he really does get a kick out of the Lawn Fawn interactive dies. They're always just so unique and so genius. And there we have it. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you again real soon.